Hey everybody, there's a great new way to support Echoplex Media. Head on over to eplex.store and you can sign up at the $5, $10, or $20 a month level. Works just like Patreon. You get all the same benefits our patrons get. Plus, you get a discount for items in our swag shop. And coming soon, we have members exclusive swag that you'll be able to pick up at a really low price. Enjoy the show.
Tell me a secret, I wanna believe it. Something's wrong with the story you tell. You say you're at home, you say you're alone. You're not that kind and I'm not that blind. Me close while whispering lies. Tell me things that mystify. You're not at home, you're not alone. Saving face just to justify. Right on time, ready or not. Say you're mine, but it's never enough. Same old lies, I've had enough. Going home alone again. Tell me a secret, I wanna believe it. Something's wrong with the story you tell. Say you're at home, say you're alone. You're not that kind and I'm not that blind. Right on time, ready or not. Say you're mine, but it's never enough. Same old lies, I've had enough. Going home alone again.
Ready or Not by Sons of Theo, and we're joined here by Ryan Acosta. Ryan, one of our returning champions. You've been on the show remotely before, and always like to have you on because your audio's on point.
Thank you. I have a pretty good setup, and even since the last time I was on, I actually really have improved my studio rig, so it sounds, in my opinion, it sounds even better.
Good. We've moved the entire studio to a much larger space. I don't know if it sounds better or not, but it sure is.
It sounds great.
Sure is nice to have some room here. So, since the last time we had you on, I think you formed Sons of Theo.
Yes. Well, so sort of. Yes and no. So the way that it initially came about, and there's an even longer story behind this. But basically, I ended up releasing the song that we just listened to under my name on streaming platforms. And then I woke up one night in the middle of the night and had this realization, you know what? I need to rebrand this under a band name or some sort of pseudonym. And I was laying there for a couple hours, and then I had this, this idea just pop in my head for Sons of Theo. And like I said, there's a deeper meaning behind it and a longer history behind where it came from, which we can get into maybe a little bit later. But I just have to say, and for anyone who decides to rebrand or change their name on any kind of streaming platform, it is the biggest pain in the ass you can even imagine, because it takes a really long time, and you have to contact your distributor, whoever you're using to distribute your music to streaming platforms. And in some cases with Spotify, you have to actually contact them directly. Even though it's an automated system, they don't automatically just remove your old name. You have to actually start from scratch with a new artist profile, and it's just a headache. So it took several months to actually get that underway. But I'm really glad I did, because for one thing, the main reason that I decided to actually rebrand was simply that there are hundreds of Ryan Acostas out there. There are two pro athletes, one pro baseball player, one pro golfer. And then there's some character from a video game with my name. And I also kept getting messages on my Facebook music page from people in the Philippines saying, "Oh, my long lost cousin," and some weird shit like that. So I just got really tired of having to deal with that. And so I decided, you know what, it might be easier to market if I come up with some catchy name. And my thinking was, really the catchiest names are under 5 syllables. So typically like 2 to 3 syllables is ideal. If you can do 4, that's, right in the pocket. So that's within that range. So Sons of Theo just made sense to me. And as far as the way it rolls off the tongue, and it's memorable. So anyway, so that's what ended up happening. I ended up releasing some music under this pseudonym, but I didn't have a band. The song we just heard, most of it was me. The only instrument that wasn't me was the bass, and the drums were virtual drums. But the bass was done by my friend Paul Bautista, whose cousin is Evan Bautista, who's another local drummer. But we had done that remotely, when everyone was in lockdown, and I sat on it for about a year, and ended up releasing it under the name under my name, and then I re-released it under Sons of Theo, and then I released another song that I played everything on, called Old St. Jude, and I actually rendered that entirely in 96K. And it just sounds, there's more clarity, more fidelity. Some people argue with me that there's no difference between that and 44K, but you can hear a difference. I mean, you can argue all you want, but there is clearly a difference. But I did everything with that song myself, but I still didn't have a band. And so I ended up booking a show before I actually had a band. I had a drummer I was kind of pseudo working with for a little while, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But I had ended up booking a show at Art Boutique last August. Actually, let me back up. Initially, I had actually booked a show at Caravan the previous summer that got canceled due to Omicron. And so finally, a year later, with the same ensemble, Aaron LeBelt on bass, and I had someone else on drums, but we ended up having Donnie Green play the show at Art Boutique last August, last minute. We'll get into that a little bit later. And Juan Maserati on keys and Ryan Walker on harmonica. And they were just a filler band. They were just, backing me. And that was okay. Ultimately, I wanted them in the band, but that just, these guys are in other projects and doing other things. So fast forward several months, actually right after that, I started working with this bassist, Mike McCaig. And, initially it started out, I'm just looking for people to, back me on this project. But we just really clicked, and we just kept playing together. He also sings harmony with me live. Really great voice, incredible bassist. and he's very seasoned musician, really really good. And then he recommended his friend Mark Foglia. They both actually play in the house band for the Jazz Jam at the Hayward Bistro, which is one of my favorite places to play. And I believe I heard you mention it on one of your other Local Love podcasts. So that's one of my favorite little places. The sound is not that great, but it's just got a really good vibe.
Yeah, the food, the vibe, like the staff there has always been real good.
At least they don't currently have food.
Oh, it had been a while since I went. I remember one of the first local shows I ever went to was my friend Frank had a band called Howlin' Dog, and that was back when I lived in Fremont. These cats were a good deal older than me at the time, and mostly like my concert experience had been like at arenas, right? Because at the time I still am, but I was like a DJ, so if I was going to local events, it was more likely to be like a rave. But I went there and they had the food was real good. The show started early too. It wasn't like the show.
They do early shows.
So I don't know if maybe I don't know what changed. Maybe they stopped doing food for whatever reason. I just remember the food being real good, the staff being great, and the vibe,
awesome.
the vibe being real good. And then me being young and stupid, I asked if I could put on a DJ event there, and the bartender laughed at me. So
it's not the vibe, and they get a lot of locals. But the locals who hang out there are really cool. The last time Sons of Theo played there, which was I want to say, it was late March or mid March. Yeah, I think it was like March 16th or something like that. And that was the first show with Mike and Mark that we played together after we had been rehearsing for about 6 months or so. Just when we had some time, and these guys are really great. Mark is an incredible musician. Both of them are a bit older than me, but they have a ton of experience, and both these guys can learn music like that. They both have background as being session musicians, so they're really superb. And we really gelled, and they're great. So it's been fun so far.
Well, that's fantastic. That's fantastic.
And we plan to record at some. I'm sorry to interrupt. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, we plan to record even some of the songs that are already out. I'm planning on recording us as a band, with a live drummer, not virtual, and which is fine for the sake of just getting stuff done quickly. But there's just something about having like real drums, and it just can sound better in a mix if it's done right. So we're going to be re-recording some of the songs that are already out, put them on an EP, and we can get into that a little bit later probably. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, you were mentioning shows. You're in the East Bay now. That kind of you're plugged into the San Jose scene, but it also opens up some opportunities to play a little more easily without so much travel at places like the Bistro, or more importantly, Oakland, Berkeley. Have you guys? Have you been putting your feelers out in the Oakland kind of Berkeley area?
I've been putting my feelers out there to play more East Bay places. It's been, it had been a while since I really had been into hardcore booking. When I was in Divided by Seven, I did all of our booking, and I really had it down. And also going back several years, this is like almost a decade ago, I was, I don't know if you remember, I was booking shows at JJ's Blues because the owner wanted me to do rock shows instead of just, traditional blues shows. So I got really good insight into how to do booking and how to approach venues, language, what not to say, not to send too many emails. That's the number one thing that I learned. It can be because these are people who get flooded with tons of bands and artists trying to book at their venue, and it can be overwhelming to the point where it's like I don't even know who to respond to. And so in fact, I remember when I was doing that, I responded to a fraction of the artists and bands that would contact me because it's just a lot, and it's you have to filter to some extent. So I've been putting my feelers out there a bit. We do have a couple things coming up in July. We're playing San Pedro Square Market. It's a 3-hour gig. We're doing half covers, half originals. And that actually was, I went through a booking agent. I had gotten his name from, I don't know where, but I was able to contact him, and that it took a little bit to try to get that set up, but we were able to finally get that set up for July 3rd. So that should be really fun. And then we're playing Winter's Tavern July 21st. And that's going to be an interesting gig because, again, it's an earlier show. Because we'd never played there before, they wanted to book us doing half covers, half originals from 4 to 7. Like they call it their happy hour crowd. And what they were offering us pay wise seemed decent. So, I thought it was a decent, that would just be a good gig.
And it turns that into a contact too. That's what I was going to say is one of the things that's kind of harder with booking anything, especially as we all get older and more into our like regular careers, is, one of the best ways to get your foot in the door at a place is to actually put your foot in the door of the place and get to know other bands that are playing there. In my case, get to know other DJs that have played there, make friends with the bartender. Like, you got to, if they know who you are, they're more likely to respond to your email, even if it's a no, so that okay, well, this place isn't really into what we're doing.
Well, you totally nailed it. And there's two things that I learned. And the first thing is that there's no harm in doing a cover gig or half cover, half original gig when you have a new-ish project, even if people know who you are. If it's under a new name, new band, whatever, I think it would behoove any artist to actually start out getting their foot in the door in a venue just by saying, we'll play 3 hours, just covers. Because then when you come back to them again and say, hey, look, we want to now mix in originals with our covers, can we get this date? And if they like you and you actually got a pretty decent response, they're more likely to actually book you again. And that at that point, people in that region, if it's not your local area, they'll at least know who you are. So that's the first thing. The second thing is something that I actually learned. I don't know if you remember the band Sit Kitty Sit from San Francisco. Sounds
familiar, but I mean,
I did a bunch of shows with them quite a long time ago now, but we became really good friends. We played a bunch of shows together. I booked them at JJ's a few times, and we played some other shows at other venues together. But I had asked Kat Downs, the singer and pianist from Sit Kitty Sit, about booking, because they had done some extensive touring, and this is a while ago, that when I was booking with Divided by Seven, I wanted to pick her brain, okay, I haven't really gotten many responses from some of these venues. What insight can you give me? And one of the first thing that she said 100% was, okay, before you even email them or call them anything, go to their site. If they have a website, look at their calendar and see if they already have an opener for, a show that maybe it's a band that would be a good fit for your band. And hit them up and say, hey, this is my press kit. My band would be a great fit for opening for this band. Do you already have an opener? If not, do you think we could open for them? And that actually landed Divided by Seven opening for Metalachi at Moe's Alley in Santa Cruz. And that was their second night. And both nights were sold out. So that was a really good crowd. I want to say it was, and it's not a big place, but it's also not tiny. So I think it was about like 500, which is pretty good. It was wall to wall. It was awesome. So that was the best advice I ever received. Now, I haven't really done that for us yet because I'm still trying to put our feelers out there and really just get, some shows under our belt.
Well, cool. What place would you like to play most in the East Bay? Like, obviously we're gonna leave like Henry J. Kaiser Arena out of this because that's an arena. Like, where are the small places that you'd like to see Sons of Theo be able to hit up?
Oh, that's a good question. I would love to play the Fox Theater in Oakland, but that's again, that's highly unlikely. No, yeah, that's highly unlikely. That's a good question. I haven't really thought about it. I haven't really felt out, a lot of places in the East Bay too much. I sent our press kit to the Golden Bull. Haven't heard back, but I probably, didn't really present myself in a way that probably would get us noticed. So that's the first thing. There's this little place that's actually not too far from where I live right now. It's called Mojo Lounge. I don't know if you're
It's
familiar
in
with
Fremont.
it.
My parents live walking distance from that
Yeah,
place. I'm
I just love
intimately
to play there.
familiar.
It's not a super nice place, but it would just be kind of a fun place, little place to play. I like playing small places like that. You know, they're intimate, and it also you get to know a lot of the locals.
Yeah, you might run into a lot of people I went to high school with if you if you go there. Not that they'd know that you know me, but yeah, I've been to that. I've been going to that place since I was 21. It's been there a very long time.
Mm-hmm. There was another place. I don't know if I know it reopened under a different name, and I can't remember what it was. There was this place called the Nightlight. I don't know if you remember it in Oakland.
Oh,
it was an upstairs venue. There's a bar downstairs, but there's like a separate door to get into the upstairs venue.
Yeah, I can't say that I remember it. There's several places like that though.
As I recall, they actually reopened under a different branding. So, but I don't know. I haven't really looked into it a whole lot.
That's all right. Where's the last place you guys played?
We played Sofa Street Fair we played the Mama Kin stage, which was kind of interesting. And so back up, we played Arputiki on April 1st. Which is probably one of my favorite sounding venues.
And the lights too. Oh my God.
Oh, the lights. Great. They're hot. Like, I don't know if you've been on that stage, but it's super hot.
Yeah. Even with the LEDs, there's just a lot of those are powerful lights. Imagine back in the day when lighting like that wasn't LED. Imagine how hot the stage was.
Yeah, I was wearing a suit at that show, and which was probably the worst idea because it's just I was just sweating. But then on April 30th, we played Sofa Street Fair. We played the Mama Kin stage, which was interesting. And I don't want to complain because I was just grateful to be able to play. But they blocked Mama Kin is between oh God, what's the name of the street where Original Joe's it's the Original Joe's is on the corner. You have
is that San Carlos?
San Carlos, yeah. And then but they blocked off the street at San Salvador. So a lot of people didn't know that Mama Kin was even part of the festival. So we didn't get a lot of people. We got maybe 10. But it was still fun.
Was it inside of Mama Kin?
Yeah, it was inside. Oh. Which I think is another reason why we didn't get a lot of people. And even some of my friends who came to watch us, they said weren't even sure it was open. Because when we even got there, it wasn't open. We had to knock on the door to have them let us in. Because we were actually the first band playing on that stage.
Oh, and that's a little bit rough too. If people aren't necessarily aware that there's a music happening there, and then you're the first band, maybe word gets around, because that's a cool place, and the sound in there is really good. And so
it's great.
And I've only been once, but that's a cool place. It
really is. And they were really nice, really accommodating. The sound guy was super cool.
Well, that's great. Yeah, we did
make a good contact.
Yeah, we haven't done anything with Sofa in a while, but maybe that's a tale for another day.
Yeah. Like I said, I was grateful to play. This was my third time playing Sofa. Divided by 7 played at the Miami Beach Club stage. I'm trying to think, maybe 2017, 2018, maybe 2017, something like that.
That year, was Shark in the Water on the billing with you that year?
Oh God, no. You know what? That might have been 2018. Yeah. In the fall, I want to say. I honestly, anyway. It's. But who was it that played? El Guapo went before us. So did O'Craven. And and I want to say Black Cat Path. I'm surprised I even remember this. There was one other band after them, and then it was Dress the Dead who closed that stage. And I think all of us who played the stage, who hung out for the rest of the show, just said, "Man, I'm glad I wasn't the band to go on right before them." And they
were so great, by the way, that Pierre opens up that space for Sofa, even though that's not what that space generally does. You know what I'm saying? Because
Right.
he's like got the most popular Latin club possibly in the Bay Area
Right.
there, and he just
Now, it
opens
does
it up
not
for
sound
Sofa.
good.
That's great. And Pierre, like from the very first time I started getting involved in the music scene here, both my favorite people to work with have been Pierre and Drew.
Oh yeah,
Audio
they've
Drew.
always been really nice to me. Like, because I met them initially through my cousin Tony, and I don't know if my cousin, he goes by Tony Two Tone. He used to be the head booker at the Gilman in Berkeley, and he did a lot of shows there. He was there for about 10 years, and so he's the one who entered. So I met Pierre and Drew through my cousin because he did a few shows there. He was also in a band. Oh God, what was the name of his band? I'm totally blanking on this right now. He's going to totally kill me when he sees this. But Jokes for Feelings, that was the name of his band. They had done a show with Sweet Haya there when Sweet Haya was just starting out, and he had also booked them at the Gilman. So because of that connection, they have always treated me really well.
The first time I met Drew is I met Drew and Pierre that night. I was playing an after party for like an anime con. I'd just gotten booked by the promoter, right? So the person before me was playing, I don't know if you know what kind of chip tunes are. It's like music. Basically, a lot of times they'll rewire an old Commodore 64 or an old Game Boy and turn it into a synthesizer.
That's awesome.
It sounds cool, right? But there's no bass. And so it's fine, whatever. It's just a different kind of music, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was in that red room, and so I went up there, and I was like, I don't know what's going on here. So I plugged in my equipment, and I was going to play breaks, and I hit the fucking play button, and my vision went blurry because if you remember that red room, there was just bass bins everywhere.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh my God, I love this. Are you talking about the middle room? I'm sorry.
Are you talking about the middle room?
I'm talking about the back room.
Oh, okay.
The room that was like a hallway.
Oh yeah. That's actually what that room. Yeah, that just seemed like a huge waste of space.
That room was like, I loved that room just because, oh my God, just that we called it the boom room from there on out because it was like
the times that I played there, that was just where we would just store our gear.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah. I've played in that room. That's probably the room I played most in San Jose when I've played indoors. I think the thing I've played most is Bike Party. But you're talking about Back Bar Sofa, right? I'm talking on the other side.
Oh, on the other side. Okay, then I don't know what you're talking about.
It's anyway. That's how I met Drew and Pierre. Was impressed by. I was impressed. First of all, stunned, and then impressed by the bass bins that they had. So and they've always been super cool. Like anytime I had a weird idea for a show or whatever, I would just contact Pierre, and I'd be like, I don't think we're gonna make any money or whatever, and he'd be like, let's have some fun. Let's have a party. So, because he makes so much goddamn money on the other club, and I don't think they do that anymore. I don't think that their space is available to us anymore. I think that he's just doing Bezos now.
Do you know if Back Bar Sofa ever reopened?
I don't think it did.
Oh, yeah, because I haven't heard anything.
I don't think it did, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah. I kind of want to talk a little bit now about Fat Hat Music. If you want to do that.
So the way it started out. Now this there's a little bit of history behind this. So when I was doing booking, my nickname I think it was actually Curtis Meacham from Monkey who said you know when you're doing booking you got to come up with a nickname, and somehow I don't remember how it came up, but I got the nickname Fat Hat, and then I just kind of went with that. And my thinking on that name, and at the time I was wearing this Trilby style fedora, and so that was kind of fitting. It just kind of became a thing that I was kind of known for or recognized for, I guess. But my thinking behind the meaning of the name is that it's just this bottomless pit of a magic hat for creative ideas. So that's kind of where the image that kind of came to my mind when I started using that. Flash forward, when I was in Divided by Seven, we were we were basically going to publish our own music, and so I started my own publishing entity, registered with ASCAP, and just to publish our own music. And my intention was to turn it into an indie label long term. That band broke up. I kind of sat on it for a little bit. I still had the name, registered. And I decided to basically put my entire business, because as many know, I'm a music teacher. I actually teach at a music school in Palo Alto called New Mozart School of Music. But I also have my own teaching practice. And over the pandemic, I started doing everything virtually. So I decided to, instead of registering my business under my name again, I just decided to register it under Fat Hat Music. But then I decided I really want to put everything under one umbrella. So I decided to launch it as a publishing company for publishing not only recorded works, but also publishing sheet music and educational materials, and also for music lessons and music videos and music content. So and then it turned into basically an indie record label. Right now, I have, Sons of Theo. I did a project on, Randall Aubrey.
Yes.
So we recorded there's still some stuff that needs to be worked out with that. But we started tracking an EP for him. And he'd have to actually tell you, because I don't want to divulge what songs we recorded. There's one cover and 2 originals. And I played bass and guitar on that. He played some acoustic guitar, but I played quite a bit of guitar and bass. Any electric stuff on there was me. And then I did the production. I did the engineering. I did mixing, and we'll eventually master it once it actually gets finished and everything. And that'll hopefully be out sooner than later. And I'm going to release that under my label. But it's my thinking is I wanted to help up and coming artists get their music out there, not to take ownership of their music. I'm just a distributor. I'm just a publisher. I want you to own 100% of your music. So that's kind of where it's at right now. And I just actually released my first guitar instruction book.
Oh, cool!
Which is the first of a 3-part series. And it's also available as an ebook, which I don't know if that's going to sell more than the physical copy. It really doesn't matter. Whatever gets people buying it and using it. Right now, I'm actually offering it to other guitar teachers, and I'm offering them a free copy. Just to see if they want to use it. And ultimately, that helps me, because if they start using that, then their students buy it from me.
Right, and
So,
if they end up not using it or whatever, you can ask why, and maybe you could learn a little bit.
I can get feedback,
do a better job.
Absolutely, and that's exactly why I'm offering that, because I can get some feedback from them, and ask, what would you like to see in future editions? Because there are a few things that I know that I'm going to want to add to it later. Even when I went back through after, getting my first couple proofs back and saying, maybe I might want to add these things later. For right now, it's pretty solid, but there are a couple things I might want to, change in the future. But it's part of a 3-book series. I'm planning on, I'm also working on a lead guitar book that will be out, I'm hoping sometime at the beginning of next year. And then hopefully I would like it to be done sooner, but it's such an arduous process, and it just, because I'm doing everything. I do my own graphic design, I do my own formatting, I do my own editing.
Your struggle is not unknown to me.
Yeah, I know you do. That's the thing. It's like, because my whole idea of starting Fat Hat Music was I want to do everything under one roof. Rather than outsourcing to someone else, I want it to be my own thing. I'm even my album art, I'm doing all of that. For the single for Ready or Not, I did the artwork for that. And actually that was taken from a comic strip that I did when I was 15.
That's cool.
And I thought that, I kind of want to resurrect this character and use it in some of my album art. I think that, it's a really ridiculous character. And I can get into what that character is about if you want, but it's really stupid. It's my juvenile 15-year-old self thinking something is funny that my adult self still kind of thinks is funny, but probably not enough to share.
That's all right. Actually, it's all right with you, I'd like to take a break and play this old St. Jude song.
Sure.
Great. And everybody, we're here with Ryan Acosta, Sons of Theo, and we'll be back after this song, which, by the way, I've never heard because it's a brand new song, and I knew I was having you brand new to me, and so I knew I was having you on, so I was like, well, I'm not going to listen to it until I have him on. We'll be back in a minute, everybody. Old St. Jude by Sons of Theo. So either that song was more suited to you vocally or you have grown as a vocalist.
So it's interesting you should say that, because even after that, so I actually did get voice lessons in between. But even after that, I did take a voice lesson from a friend of mine after the release of Old St. Jude. And since then, my voice has actually even gotten better than that, which is one of the reasons why I want to redo it and put it on an EP. Probably, I don't know when that's going to get done, but yeah, I would definitely say there's definitely an improvement. There's also an improvement in production.
I noticed that too. Yeah, especially the drums. Even though you were saying the drums sound, they have a little more swing. It sounds like in there.
There's that, but there's also so there are a couple things. One, the Ready or Not was rendered in 44K. Old St. Jude was rendered in 96K.
You get a little more dynamic range out of that.
Yes, absolutely. And anyone who argues about that, just listen to the difference. And I understand
people ends up getting squashed down to an MP3 and put in people's headphones, but still, like,
yeah,
if the source material is higher quality, there's nothing. Even if most of that gets stripped out by the MP3 encoding process, there's no reason not to have the source material be the highest quality you could possibly have it.
You get more fidelity, and that's really what it boils down to. And so there's that. So the first one, I really appreciate Matthias Miller, who actually mastered Ready or Not. He and I sat down, and he gave me a full tutorial on mixing. And, I thought I knew about mixing, but he really helped me a lot. And we rescued that track as much as possible. There were a lot of things on the initial rendering of that song, Ready or Not, that were wrong from the get-go. Like, for example, the bass was recorded way too hot, and that was very difficult to fix. And so I thought by taking out a lot more low end, I would fix that, but that really didn't save it. So
never take out the bottom end of your song.
Right. And so, so he helped me with that. He ended up mastering it and for free. And I have to give him that. I really appreciate, he just liked the song and liked my playing, I guess. So, and when we talked about possibly me doing a little bit of a quid pro quo and doing some album art for his music project in the future as well, because he liked some of my art. So he said, well, maybe, in the future, if you want to do an album cover for us, then that would be great. So I actually took notes during those sessions, and I have, tons of notebooks full of notes about, just basic mixing and how to mix reverb, how to EQ reverb, things like that, things that I thought I knew. But, a lot of that was just me being a hack of all trades, I guess, where, I kind of guessed, by ear, most of my previous mixing projects. And with this, I took some serious notes. With Old St. Jude, I applied all of that knowledge that I got from him. And now, am I doing his knowledge justice? I hope. To some extent, I learned a few other things, about layering vocals through that. But I did a lot of layering of vocals, a lot of layering of guitars. And just to get a really good panoramic scope, I sang all of the vocals, even the really high falsetto stuff and all the really low bass stuff. And so, yeah, it came out pretty well. And the crazy story about that is, I think it was like Monday morning, I sat down and came up with the initial idea for the song. The next day, finished writing the lyrics. The next morning, but this is all before I go to teach, my teaching job. And I started tracking, the virtual drums. I basically road mapped out the basic structure with the virtual drums and programmed all that and had it from beginning to end. I had a sense in my head as far as what it was going to sound like and as far as the dynamics and everything. And then I laid down the bass. And that was one of the things that Matthias actually told me is, start with, and I think he was quoting Peter Gabriel and saying that Peter Gabriel actually starts with bass, drums, and vocals before even adding guitar or anything else. And if the song doesn't stand on its own without those three elements, then scrap it. And so I started out with basically just tracking bass, drums, vocals. And then I started adding guitar. And even then, the guitar is very low in the mix, believe it or not. And I think that the one thing that I learned in this whole process is that most people who are guitar players doing mixing put the guitars too loud. And you can barely hear the drums and the bass. And so, but really the bass drums vocals need to be in the forefront more than anything else. If you listen to most rock and pop music, bass drums vocals are the most prominent things in the mix. And
Well,
I'm sure you would probably agree with this.
The bass and the drums primarily, because that's what'll make your car shake. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Like, and people like that, you know.
And that's
really
what
like
I did with this. And if you listen to it, the bass and the drums are very prominent in the mix. But the main thing is just subtractive EQ and making sure that, there's no conflicting, frequencies. And so that's what I really learned from that whole experience, is getting everything as clear as possible. Rendering it a higher resolution also helps, but also subtracting all of those frequencies that are clashing with each other.
Right. You don't want to you don't want the guitar muddying up where the bass is supposed to be, just because just because the guitar does happen to put off some bass tones. You can't pull it all out because the guitar ends up sounding tinny. But
Right.
yeah. I mean, I tried to write dance music for a long time, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Where you want this you want this kind of wall of sound at least on the portions where that's appropriate. And yeah, you have to be leaning on the EQ, and that's not adding. You have taking things out makes it sound fatter.
Oh, absolutely. And also with the vocals too, like just double tracking vocals. I do oftentimes I'll do harmonies, but I'll also do an octave up and octave down. But sometimes very low in the mix, because you don't want it to be you don't want it to overpower the main vocal. It's just there to kind of add this range in the tonals, in the sonic spectrum, frequency wise.
We might even just call it some flavor.
Yeah.
People might not even notice that you've done it. In fact, the point is that no one notices that you've done it.
Right.
That's the point.
But without it, something would be drastically missing.
Right. And that's just because there's a big difference between like a live show and a studio recording. Whereas a live show, you don't need to triple up your vocals, because there's the energy of the crowd. Everything's kind of cranked up, and you're not trying to record your album when you do a live show. So, and
we're a trio, so which is probably my favorite band arrangement. I really like to play it as a trio. I like being able to do at least 2, if not 3-part harmonies vocally. And the way I play guitar, I like to fill a lot of space. And, there's no need for another guitar if I can do everything myself while singing. And so far I've been able to pull it off. So there's some things that, are a little bit harder to pull off, while I'm singing, but I just practice it and try to, do it to the best of my ability live. And so far it's been going pretty well. And we did one thing I want to add with this song: the way that it sounds on the track is very different than how we play it live. And the first show that I played under Sons of Theo with the fill-in band, we didn't even do it close to that. It sounded more like a Tom Petty song, which is not how I envisioned the song at all. The way we do it live as a trio, it's more chugging, and it sounds very Black Sabbath. And which is how I initially envisioned it in the first place. But I really wanted to give it the recording more dynamic range by adding the acoustic guitars. And even then I layered the acoustic guitars, did alternate chord voicings to pan it in stereo. So it had a bigger sound basically. And it almost sounds like a 12-string at a couple spots.
Great. And before I wanted to talk a little bit about, first, I wanted to talk a little bit about how the pandemic actually gave a lot of people a bit of a push to learn more. And then during the post game, I actually want to talk about the San Jose music scene. I always put that stuff in the post game because people end up, maybe not always for public consumption. So I can just speak for myself here. During the pandemic, I basically quit my day job and decided that I was going to suffer to do what I had to do. I kept a couple clients, and now I'm, doing Echoplex more or less full time. I have a couple clients that I really like to work for and don't want to leave them high and dry. Did the pandemic also provide a push for you as far as Fat Hat music goes?
Oh, absolutely. And that, because before I was, teaching at the school in Palo Alto, and, and I was there, a few days during the week. And then I also had my students who actually pre-pandemic, my students in the East Bay, I was renting a studio. I was subletting a studio from another teacher who was also, renting from this. It was kind of a rehearsal space / teaching space / recording studio. And I don't want to name the studio because there's a whole bunch of stuff that happened with that I don't want to get into. But basically, so I was renting that, and I was even paying rent on the space while we were in lockdown. And that went on for several months. And I just basically went to the guy I was subletting from. I said, hey, I'm paying for this, and I don't know when we're going to come out of this. It really seems stupid for me to keep paying for this space that I'm not even using. And so that kind of pushed me. So, and at that point, this is before my wife and I got married. We actually were renting a house in Newark, and then we moved to Union City. And we got a much bigger house, and I was able to put together. So my studio in Newark was actually in this kind of slightly finished part of the garage. And then we moved here, and we actually had we had tons of extra room. And so I was able to turn this room into my studio. I was able to do some acoustical treatment. I was able to expand my rack setup with my mic pre's, and just make it a little bit more streamlined. And for me, it really pushed me to actually think about, okay, if we don't come out of this, and let's say I need to, and the school, something happens to the school gig, I really want to come up with something that, will be equitable long-term and be profitable, something that, I could even earn, passive income from, and so I had this idea that, what if, like, long-term I have, a subscription-based, online platform where people can sign up and get, they can, take, they have unlimited access to video tutorials and sheet music. I'm still a ways off from doing that specifically, but it still pushed me to kind of consider what are my options. And, and my wife kept pushing me to finish I had like at least 4 or 5 books that I was working on simultaneously because, as we talked about even the last time I was on here, I tend to take on a billion different projects at once, and that's kind of the idea of Fat Hat is like just this, this bottomless pit of creative ideas. It's like I constantly have all these ideas that I want to do, and I'll start them, but then it takes me forever to finish any of them. And so, so she pushed me, just finish one, just, commit to it and finish it. And so, that's kind of, so that's part of, it was part pandemic, part, having a partner who actually pushes you to complete something too, which is a good thing. In my case, it's good for me.
Well, that's great. Yeah, there's everybody that we've talked to. Well, there are bands that we talked to that they were like, hey, we're just none of us are very technologically.
Uh-oh. What's happening?
What do you mean?
Oh, YouTube started to launch for some reason.
Oh.
Uh-oh. My monitor is doing something weird. Hold on 1 second, man.
Yep.
Uh-oh. Okay, hold on 1 second. There's a device that's connected to my thing. Hold on. There's some weird stuff happening.
It's funny. As soon as I mentioned technology, your computer went on the fritz.
Hold on. Is there any way to just hold on 1 second?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, hold on. Is there any way you can go to a song really quick? Oh, okay, that's disconnected. Someone in my house was actually connected to my somehow connected to. Oh man, I don't know how to disconnect this. Hold on 1 second.
We can close out the more formal part of the interview here, I suppose. Everybody, this has been Ryan Acosta from Sons of Theo. He was in a band called Divided by 7. We're going to rock a jam by Divided by 7, and we'll come back with a little bit of post-game for my members. And, of course, for anybody in Ryan's community who would like to download it, we'll make it available, too. This is Narrative by Divided by 7. We'll be back in a minute.
Narrative, relative to how I feel, put a spin on it. Spice must flow, uphold the status quo, keep the torches lit.
Every Saturday is Cat Day on Echoplex Media, and not only are we posting fucking cats, we invite all content creators to join our open panel. Visit echoplexmedia.com/panel to learn how to join. Every third Saturday is Operation Catterday, where we cover this week and last year and play the best clips from the cast of conspiracy characters that Now Space has learned to loathe. The show starts at 8 p.m. Pacific at twitch.tv/echoplexmedia. Find our full schedule at echoplexmedia.com.